Yeah, we'll worry about that.
Okay, here we are. This is Steve Struggle with me, and I am Dr. Ibrahim Weizfeld. And Steve is a veteran Panther activist, thinker, and we have a lot to say to you today. Now, let's begin. Steve, you were just telling me about an incident that took place in your neighborhood. That's astounding.
Yeah, we heard about an incident in Los Angeles County that occurred a year ago, and the Sheriff Luna, had a press conference a day ago about this incident, which occurred before he became sheriff. The station where the incident occurred is called Palmdale. It's in a mostly blue collar and poor area of LA County, the northern part of the county. Just like Pittsburgh is the northern part of Contra Costa County within the Oakland Bay area. I mentioned Pittsburgh because they're very similar. This is areas where people who don't have the money to live in a certain area are moved out to, where they have cheaper rents. Usually, unfortunately, schools are not as good, and the police just wreak havoc. So this officer stopped a car with some women and their children in the car. The women allegedly didn't have car seats for their children, so he gave them a felony arrest, if you can believe it, for child endangerment, and wanted to seize the children from the women. Yes, okay, and so it's going to get bad. And during the confrontation with the women and the men in the car, the sheriff punched the woman in the face 2 or 3 times, just for no reason, while she's holding her children. So this has been kind of saying to me, this is an example of the kind of brutality that women, especially Black women, Latin women, women who are poor, face from law enforcement. The other thing that I share with you, which you said that you heard about, was the rape club that's occurring in Northern California in a town called Dublin. And Dublin is a pretty quote unquote nice suburb of Oakland. Schools are growing, property values are going up, but there's a federal prison and a prison camp. The prison camp is for men, the federal prison is for women. And for the past 3 or 4 years, there's been a rape club going on in this prison, meaning correctional officers, the warden, the chaplain have been harassing sexually, having sexual intercourse within the prison, taking pictures of women naked in the prison, just abusing their power of authority over these women to sexually harass and degrade them. And if women spoke up about it, they were put in solitary confinement or transferred to another prison. Now, there's been some news recently about some people being arrested and convicted. But the point is, again, these women are imprisoned, so they're not able to go to Starbucks, go and buy a taco or some donuts from a store, or take a stroll down the street. They have no authority over themselves beside that which they demand. And when they complain about being harassed and sexually abused and raped, they were put in solitary confinement and sent to other prisons. And this has all been documented by the FBI and by federal prosecutors. This is the kind of abuse of power and brutality that women are facing at the hands of the U.S. system. And these both happen within a year of each other. The people in Palmdale don't know the women in Dublin FCI, who are mostly there for low drug offenses. They shouldn't be in prison, but because they got busted on some drug crime, they put them in this jail. These women don't know each other, but because of the stance of law enforcement and the court system toward women, they're subject to physical beating as in Palmdale, or sexual abuse, as in Dublin. And we don't have to live this way, but we are. So we have to continue to fight and organize, expose, support, give comfort to all those who are facing these horrific types of oppression. It's terrible.
Yes, I read about the Dublin case. It seems as if, the guards, are guilty of a greater criminal offense than anybody else, in the prison. It's like inverted reality. Yeah. And in the case of the police, harassing a mother and her children, I've heard of this, before, this scenario, in Arizona, where mothers, with their Mexican children driving along, they get stopped for no good reason. And then all of a sudden, there's a child care agent there taking the kids away. And then there's a white couple waiting to take the kid. And all of a sudden, the child disappears, just like that. And the
just like that,
left with no recourse. Like, this is like, really degenerate, power structure. It's incredible, and it's getting worse.
Yes, it's getting worse. I agree. It's getting worse. Yeah. That's why we have to organize a way of fighting back, of winning our liberation, of comforting those who've been treated with such indignity, so they can reclaim their humanity.
Yeah. There should be, like, ordinarily, if you needed security, you would call up the police, 911 or something. We should have our own, code. We should have our own, security. So when people get into trouble like that, with the police or child, kidnapping agency, then people should be able to call up, like our emergency number and get our emergency aid, to get somebody out there, to video it, to, speak up, with the legal, protocols that are necessary to protect people in the face of the police, that they can't get away with it. And if they do try to get away with it, then it's on video, and then the police can get charged themselves, and then they can be learned, like Pavlovian dogs. They need to be trained into being humans. That's the way it should be.
I agree. What's curious about this, that in the federal prison in Dublin, well, this is part of an ongoing drama with the U.S. federal prison. People may not know there are federal prisons in the United States. Then there are state prisons. Then there are county jails, okay? So a federal prison is run by a group called the Bureau of Prisons. It's controlled by the United States Congress, Senate, and the House. And the Bureau of Prisons is renowned for its corruption, for its notoriety for being lawless. And the issue of cameras you mentioned, the cameras don't ever work. I mean, when this guy, the famous American, whoever he was, what's this guy's name? He was he committed suicide in prison. Everybody knows him. But the point is, when he committed suicide, supposedly, or was killed, supposedly, the cameras weren't working. And same thing in this prison, the cameras never work. So while the policemen in many cities now are forced in the United States to carry cameras on themselves to record what they do, and that's why this video was released by the LA County Sheriff. In prisons, most times the cameras don't work, and there's no accountability. What you're saying about having someone with a camera is very important. Get inside the prison, no one is going to come with the camera. That's the problem. So it's just going to be the prisoner's word against the prison guard. And while the women were being raped and sexually abused, the abuser said to them, "No one's going to believe you. I'm the chaplain was raping the women. The chaplain in the name of God. I'm gonna force you to have sex with me." The chaplain was saying, "No one's going to believe you. I'm the chaplain. You're a prisoner." So you're right. You're right.
That's like when the churches in Canada, were administrating the boarding schools for the kidnapped, Indigenous children. They would rape them, and they were supposed to be religious figures. They're so bizarre. Like, and neurotic. To think that they actually have, some sort of sacredness, to their existence, and then they go ahead and they are barbarians. It's
Thank you.
incredible.
They are barbarians. There's a book I've been reading, Columbus and other I'll just say barbarians. That's not the name of the book, but it's a book about Columbus. And this gentleman called it the Wetiko syndrome of absolute power, depravity, theft, violence. There's no egregious conduct that's beyond these people.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they won't do. And there's no penitence, no remorse, no accountability, nothing. I did it like a couple of days ago. I was watching a video from Ukraine, and a Ukrainian assault squad was driving down a little grassy knoll in Ukraine. They get out, they go hide in the bushes to attack somebody driving down the street. So a civilian was driving down the road. This is just like a field somewhere, okay? And they open fire on the civilian. They kill the civilian and somebody in the back seat. They take the body out. One person starts kicking the body. The other person tries to apply some first aid. They pick him up, throw him in the bush, push the car to the side, get back in the car, and drive off. I saw this. I'm not making this up. So I'm saying this behavior of what they call wetikos, just uncivilized, uncouth, violent. Power is all I have, and I use it with absolute indiscretion.
Yeah.
This is what these women in the prison. This is what that family driving down the road, just driving their little car, 2-seater car, a Toyota or something. Just driving down the road, or the women getting punched in the face in Palmdale. That's what they're facing. So we have to organize to change our society, to revolutionize our society, because we don't have to live like this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Power always thinks that if it can get away with it, then it's okay.
That's right.
So we're not going to let them get away with it. Yeah.
And these boys, when they all got back in the infantry fighting vehicle, they just drove off. I said, damn, man, how do you do that? You just murdered 2 people. They weren't even soldiers. You just killed them and threw their bodies in the trees and drove off. Oh, man, that's something else. That is not cool at all, man.
Well, that's the general strategy. They're going to make life unlivable for the people in the Donetsk and Lugansk, and nationalities of the Donbass region. And they're just going to make it unlivable there, with cluster bombs and all that, so that people are going to have to leave. And then, they consider that to be a victory, because they've been able to ethnically cleanse, the territory that they claim to be their own.
That's a very good way of putting it. That's a very good way of putting
it. This new Ukrainian imperialism, as if they think they can get away with it. But no, they're facing what in effect is the Red Army, has come in, to stop them, together with the local militias, of course.
You're making a very good point there. Yeah.
But in the United States, like the acceleration, the exponential acceleration of the phenomena of the mass shootings there by mainly white supremacists who are going in to attack, whoever they think doesn't belong, and this is
very true.
This is as a couple of Americans that I met here in Montreal said, not said, but they agreed, this was like a slow civil war happening in the United States right now, and it's increasing.
I totally agree. And these 2 examples I mentioned are egregious examples of that civil war. I think that's very, very, and it happened a year apart, 400 miles apart. People don't know each other, but the same type of incident occurs. The same thing, nothing different, except the type of incident that occurred. But the brutality, the power, the hubris, the arrogance, the unaccountability, and the trauma and psychological damage that those women or those victims have to suffer through. Yes, right. Agreed.
And at the same time, okay, there's this sort of mentality in the Western Christian capitalist countries that if you don't make it, it's your own fault. Well,
Oh
let's
well.
have a look at some of the facts here. I think I have a share screen here. I don't know if I can make it appear correctly.
That's okay. Let's give it a try.
I haven't done this successfully before. I'm not sure how to share the screen. Oh, I think I got it here. Yeah. $31.46 trillion. The national debt of the United States of America. Here it is. You know, all this money, where's it
Okay.
gone? You know, like, you know, how come people are so poor if, you know, all this money has been spent? You know, what's it's been spent on? The national debt, here, I'll give some objective reporting here. The national debt is what the federal government owes creditors, just like personal debt is made up of different types of debt, such as public and federal government trust funds. It represents the sum of past annual budget deficits. U.S. national debt total 31.46 trillion in May 2023, and increasing. So, well, I hope this can be seen, you know, because I've got the
I can see it.
background on blur, so it may not
I can see
appear
it
as it
fine.
should
You can see
be.
it fine.
But
Yeah, you can see it.
okay,
You can see a 31.46 trillion, and you see a national debt check
yeah,
on the right. Yeah.
and I think that the number of you know, the military budget in the United States now is approaching about $1 trillion a year. And how much is going to the Ukraine military, to the NATO military?
Man,
I
that's the
mean, you
biggest
know,
joke in
I keep on
town.
hearing
You know,
various numbers, and they keep on, you know, increasing.
they keep on increasing, and they take. You know, Ukraine is known for its corruption. They take the guns and sell them overseas and ship them off to somebody else. You know, and then they start getting cluster weapons. You know, which is just making. So once the Ukrainians start using them, then the Russians go, okay, we can use them too. And I really think, just speaking here, it's interesting that both the U.S. and Russia do not sign the agreement to get rid of the cluster weapons. So somebody must have had them, and somebody else said, okay, well, since we're enemies, I think I kind of need to have them too. Because there's such a despicable use of munitions against humans. Most of the world isn't even allowed. They have conventions against their use. And I think it's really a damn shame that the way this war is ending. I hope the war is ending soon with an increase of lethal weapons being used. The only people getting impacted are the soldiers and the civilians.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
ones who have no power really are power, or they have power, they're not using it, but they have the only ones who are not in the seats of power. One of the seats of power, they're not feeling it. No one's gonna cluster bomb them. No, they're not. It's just the soldiers and the civilians who are gonna be, especially, I would predict, in Ukraine, they're gonna use them cluster bombs in Donbass.
Mm.
You know, there's no way they won't use them,
Yeah, yeah,
because that's who they hate
mm.
with their anti-Russian ideology,
Yeah,
and they bomb civilians for at least 9 years without stop. So what? Why would they stop now?
yeah. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
That's, at least, that's a sad commentary, but
Yeah,
that's really how I see it. I'm sorry.
yeah. If they're supplied with munitions, you know, they've already used, you know, the rockets that they've been supplied with, the HIMAR missiles and stuff. And what do they attack? Civilian targets, because they want the
Always.
civilians to leave, because that's their target. You know, they're not, you know, interested in liberating, you know, the people of the former Ukrainians of the Eastern Ukraine, you know, from Russia. No, they're not interested in that. They're interested in getting rid of those people because it's the territory that they want. They want the resources, and they
That's
want
right.
the industrial infrastructure that's situated there as well. You know, like,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. Many people are not aware of that history of how at least I gleaned a little bit of history a few weeks ago, that actually Eastern Ukraine was historically part of Russia. And after the Bolshevik Revolution, there was something happened where
Mm-hmm.
the Ukrainian Socialist Republic didn't have an industrial base, and that's why, am beginning to read, that's one of the reasons why the Eastern became part of Ukraine, was to provide them with a working class and with those raw materials.
Oh,
That's why they want. Yes, yes, yes.
uh-huh.
That's, I read this. I heard. Yeah, people
Yes.
haven't seen this video, but
Yeah.
historically, that part of the land was historically Russian speaking, Russian oriented, and there was a need or an issue when the Bolsheviks took power in 1917, 1918, that they had to, well, someone in the Ukrainian SSR asked either the party or someone in government, can we have this as part of our territory, because we need workers, we need skilled technicians, we need factories that make our nation more comprehensive. That's why it's important, because that's where all the industry is, right? You hit the head, the nail around the head. That's where it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just farmland where the crops and the grain grow, but they have to have some. They want the industry. That's why they want. That's why
Yeah.
they're pissed
Mm.
that if this area and Crimea, with access to the Black Sea, remains Russian, then what they used to having isn't going to be around anymore. And I think that's over with for them, but for the Ukrainians. But time will tell what happens. You
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I read about this case as well. It was Lenin who proclaimed, in effect, the independence of the Ukraine. He recognized the Ukraine under the principle
Right.
of national self-determination. And it
Right.
was the Ukraine, without the Donbass, because that's, the Ukrainian speaking part, of Russia. So some Ukrainian communists came to Lenin and said, couldn't, like you include,
Right.
like Donbass, in this
Right.
Ukrainian Republic, because it's, better for military strategy. It was in the middle of the Civil War. And that Civil War was, crazy time, because you had the
Yeah.
Black Army of the anarchists as well, fighting for the liberation of the Ukraine against the White Army of the monarchists, the czarists, and against the Red Army of Trotsky, who was trying to put down the anarchists because he wanted to include Ukraine and Russia under orders, from the Communist Party, I suppose. He was also ordered to go and attack Poland, but he sort of conveniently allowed that battle to be lost. So, there's so much, that is behind all of this. And Ukrainian
Yes.
nationalists, don't even recognize, that they owe their independence, to Lenin. They won't recognize.
They should. Yeah. They really don't. They really don't recognize. And that's a very important historical point that we need to get circulated, because I was stunned to read it. I just came across it. I was looking on Telegram one day, and because I have all these Telegram channels, I have to use my phone to translate it from Russian to English. I really must want to learn it if I'm using that.
Huh.
And I ran across this. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It was a video. I said, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, I felt so stupid not knowing it, but I didn't know. Yeah.
Hardly anybody knows that. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Hey, I have oh, okay. Yeah, I got a figure here. There's about, yes. Now, there's about 60 billion already, maybe probably more, that's been supplied to the Ukrainian military by the United States alone, not even including the other members of NATO, which should be called the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. But
agreed.
So where do they think they're going to get this money from? Not just, putting everybody in debt, but, like $300 billion in gold reserves from Russia has been stolen.
Yes.
Like it was stored in the Swiss banks or whatever, like
they stole the money.
300 billion
stole the money
in gold has been taken, stolen from Russia. Money. And not even Russia saying anything about this, it's sort of weird. So that's one of the things that's spreading in the banking system in the West.
Yeah. I wish maybe it's being fought out in some other channels, but when they just took them, they seized the money. Then I think earlier this year, I want to say in
Yeah,
March or April, the EU decided, well, we're just going to take the money. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
just like, outright again, that Wetiko view. There's nothing we can't do. There's nothing we won't do. We'll take everything you have. If you don't like
yeah,
it, too bad.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is
we'll see.
called looting. And even the word
Thank you.
loot was stolen from the Hindu language, because the British, were looting all of India. And they still have all of the artistic artifacts, in the museums in London,
Oh man, it's so wrong.
and this looting uh, also includes not only the 300 billion from Russia. What about the 15 billion from Libya in New York banks, the 20 billion from Libya in Canadian banks, and the another 20 billion from Libya in the Swiss banks? They haven't been returned to the Libyan governments in Tripoli, the National Government of Reconciliation. No, they've taken that as well, and they're holding on to it. So, what kind of a system is this? And I don't
It's
know.
a capitalist, the
Well,
capitalist imperialist robbery system.
it's
That's
it's
what it is.
it's more than capitalism. It's like worse than capitalism. It's like we have to invent a name for it. Like it's incomprehensible. Like, but I have a story of my own to tell you. I was arrested just a couple of weeks ago. Yes, I was.
Why?
I was arrested. Okay. I went to a meeting of the Holocaust survivors at the Jewish Community Center because I'm a second generation Holocaust survivor. My parents, escaped from the ghettos and got into, went into the USSR as refugees and were given refuge there and given, like a place in the society, and they had work even. So I'm coming out of the meeting, and on the post outside on the sidewalk in front of the Jewish Community Center is this, like poster, plastic poster for the Israel Day Parade. So I say, oh, I used to organize a contingent, to go and counter protest with Palestinian flags. But, here in Montreal, it's so, the left is so divided that we're not able to sort of, put together a united front for that purpose. Okay. So I'm walking away and I said, no, I got to do something here, and so all of a sudden, the words "and a free Palestine" were written on a poster in an empty space, in small, relatively small, and then, like went away on the bus. But before the bus came, I saw that there was a security guard who came outside and took a picture of it. So, oh, well, big deal. So 2 weeks later, I get a call from the police and they say, you're being charged with criminal mischief. Okay, you come in and to receive your charge, at a certain date and time. Okay, so I agreed to do that, but I slept in. Okay, first thing. So then finally got, the charge. It was a charge of criminal mischief, less than $5,000, which under Canadian law means that you only get put away in prison for 2 years. Maximum penalty.
Only 2 years.
Only 2 years, Okay. So next thing I know, the next day, what happens is that I got another email from the police saying that my book in the Jewish Public Library inside the Jewish Community Center,
yes,
has been expelled. They say that
your
the library doesn't want my book anymore. Okay. Even though it's listed in the catalog and everything like that.
The police told you this?
So I said, what's going on here? So I asked police, who's doing this? He says, oh, it's the same organization that, is charging you with criminal mischief, which is itself a question, because they got all mixed up. And so I said, really, who is the person, who took my book out? And they said, oh, no, that's secret. That's anonymous person. It's just an organization that's doing it, the Zionist lobby. So, I contacted the library. I'm banned, from the Jewish Community Center until my first court hearing. I had to sign this paper, saying that I wouldn't go back there. And if I didn't, they would have kept me in prison. So I did. I signed it, until August 21st. And, the library, when I contacted them, said they didn't know anything about this. like it wasn't them that did this. So I said, I contacted the police, library never, like refused my book. What's going on here? Who's doing this? So they said, okay, we'll take the book back. So I won the case, first case, So the police are going to bring back my book into the library. There should be a video made of this, showing the police bringing back the book, like, how can the police take a book out of a library? It's never been done before. But in my case, it has been done. But, they were forced to bring the book back because I threatened them, with charging whoever did it, with theft and censure, so police didn't know what else to do. They had to take the book back, right?
Right.
So, wow. But then I have to go to court, for the charge of these words having been written on the poster and a free Palestine. It's not even saying, it's not like crossing out the word Israel, and writing over the word Palestine. No, I tried, like the least possible sort of declaration to be made, saying, okay, like Israel exists, like, how about a free Palestine too, like according to international law, according to the Oslo Interim Agreement, according to the 1948, partition plan voted and accepted by the United Nations and adopted supposedly with Israel's consent. There's supposed to be a Palestine there. Where is it? What? In Ramallah, there's one building that says PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, and on the side it says the State of Palestine. That's it. That's the State of Palestine. That's it, and that's all, that they're going to get. It's incredible. So those words, are now considered to be criminal, as if, oh yes, and the police come from the hate crimes division of the police of Montreal too.
The hate crimes division.
Yes. So they try to make a big Megillah, as we say in Yiddish, out of this whole thing. So I'm going to have much more to say about that.
Please do. We need to mobilize support for you.
I'm defending myself, like no lawyers, lawyers don't know what they're doing. And lawyers, always go for the least possible sort of level of confrontation. They call it the lowest hanging fruit. That's what they'll go after. Usually it's just one point that they're trying to make in the court before the judge. Like me, I've got, like a whole list of points to be made. Like they're not going to get rid of me, like in 1 hour. No way. If they want to go to trial, I'm going to give it to them, like full blown. And they're going to get, everything, brought up. And then they have to testify too, and I can question them. And they have to provide all of the, the documentation that goes along with this. They have to provide everything that's been, written about, my case, because I have to defend myself. So, the court orders them to give me what's called a discovery. Courts are very useful, very important, feature of civil society. And it's not even part of the state. The courts and the judiciary are independent of the state. That's why the Netanyahu government in Israel is trying to subordinate the Supreme Court to the Knesset parliament there. Very important.
Right. Very good.
So we don't have much time left in this 40-minute broadcast.
Okay.
So
I think we hit some good points today, and I appreciate having the opportunity to speak to your viewers, to share what's going on here in the United States. And also, I'm concerned about your situation legally and want to see what we can do to garner some international attention to it. I think we need some attention.
Yeah, international organizations internationally should be writing out, a statement of support. In my case, that I could submit to the court. And I'm not just going to submit it in paper. I'm going to read it into the transcript of the court. I'm going to listen to every single word.
Yes, we need that. Good. We definitely need that.
Okay, great. Wonderful to meet up with you, Steve. And I think we've talked about things that, you don't hear about anywhere else.
Right. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Wonderful. Okay, great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.